There aren't too many people who are not familiar with The Producers by Mel Brooks, but believe it or not, you're looking at one. I have never seen this show, I've never seen this movie, and I went to watch it pretty much not really knowing what it is about, apart from just being about Broadway producers, something like that. So I was in for a surprise, both positive and a little bit more controversial as well, but overall I have enjoyed this show. In this video I'm gonna deep dive into my impressions and help you make up your mind if this is a show you want to see. Initially this was a movie released in 1967, so quite a while ago, but somehow it has transcended time and became one of all-time favorites. After the movie it was adapted into stage production, and stage production received 12 Tony Awards during that season. After the great success on Broadway in 2001, they have adapted it again for the big screen and released another movie. But then in 2024, the new revival of this show has hit London in Many a Chocolate Factory, and the show was on in this intimate venue up until March, when it was basically announced it's going to transfer to the West End. And now it is scheduled to be in the West End until March 2026 at the Garrick Theatre, and it is pretty much already shaping up to be one of the favorites. The story of The Producers is centered around Max Bialystok, who used to be a famous Broadway producer, but after many flops he has become a conman, and he encounters Leo Bloom, who is this timid accountant who comes to do his financial books. And during a brief conversation with Max, Leo mentions that if they were to oversell shares in a guaranteed Broadway flop, Max would make quite a lot of money, and from there onwards the two of them get onto the mission to create a musical that is guaranteed to flop on Broadway. So after a bit of scheming and going through different scripts, they figure out that the show that is destined to flop is called Springtime for Hitler. And from here the show becomes an outrageous parody and satire about Hitler, Nazis, and making this musical as gay as possible. As you can tell from the plot, this is far from a serious musical, and given that it's written in the mid-1960s, it has quite a lot of outdated jokes and just things that are probably unimaginable to be written today. But there is a charm and humor to it. So there are many reasons why audiences still enjoy this musical in 2025 and why this production is so acclaimed. So let's talk about a few things that make it outstanding. The first thing that makes this show great are the two leads who are playing the producers. The role of Max Bialystok is played by Andy Nyman, and Leopold Bloom is played by Mark Antolin. And the two of them already played these characters at the Many a Chocolate Factory production of this show. So going to see them during previews really felt like an extension of a really good time that they're having on stage. They were so in control of these characters and very comfortable with them that the chemistry and storytelling that the two of them were doing on stage was just nothing short of spectacular. It is such a fine skill of an actor to be able to deliver this type of humor and these type of characters. So Max Bialystok is very sleazy, greasy, and just an odd person. And Andy Nyman made him all these things without really trying too hard. He was just so under the skin of this character. And this was reflected in the way that Andy was singing, walking, talking, even the times when he was sitting on this chair. It just, everything was so living and breathing. This really particular character that we kind of don't like, but we're so amused by. And on the other side of this spectrum is Leo Bloom, who is taking as little from life as possible. And he is a well-behaved accountant who just doesn't believe in himself at all. He's carrying around this blue blanket that he had since he was a baby. He has panic attacks when he needs to speak up his mind or when someone is speaking to him. And this clash of these two characters and their initial dynamic versus seeing how Leo becomes so confident and comfortable with being pretty much a conman by the end of the first act is so amusing to watch. And Mark Antolin has really tapped into nuances of this character to help us understand what is driving Leo and what he ultimately wants to get out of this relationship. In order to make this a fantastic trio, they have also Joanna Woodward, who is playing Ulla, who is this Swedish actress who kind of comes to the audition, but then she turns out to be their secretary and ultimately Leo's love interest. She has some some really hilarious and iconic lines that she delivers with so much humor and charisma, and it's tapping into those typical stereotypes about bombshell, Marilyn Monroe style, the way that she dances, the way that she talks, the way that she's kind of going about. But then ultimately when she shows love interest for Leo, it's a completely different side that we see. This triangle is working very well on stage, and they're so confident in their characters that anytime they bounce off of ideas and movements and just jokes, it feels so natural and fun to watch them. But this is not where the magic of the cast stops, because Roger Debris is played by Trevor Ashley, and he brings some of the most iconic moments in the show. I think that there were a few occasions when he appeared on stage, the people were literally holding their tummies and they could not stop laughing. There were a few people who had really loud laughs in the audience, and that was hysterical to hear that like people could not stop laughing at some of his moves. And he really delivered from the moment that he enters on stage to the very last bows. Like, he was so in character and so camp and so gay and so funny to watch that I really enjoyed his performance. One more standout performance is by Harry Morrison, who is playing Franz Leibkind, and he was hilarious, but not only because of his over-the-top performance, but also because of the whole choreography surrounding him and the pigeons that he was doing the scenes with. That was absolutely hilarious. His entrance on stage was, again, something that people could not stop laughing about, and he really delivered on this role and just the exaggerated version of it every time when he was on stage. The second thing why this musical is so acclaimed and popular are the songs and the music that are so catchy, that are done in a proper Broadway 50s and 60s style. They are the typical tunes that a lot of people associate with musical theater, and if you like that glitz and glamour of that time, then you will love this musical. Some of the notable numbers are Springtime for Hitler, which was delivered with set design and costumes and the choreography that just made everything even more funny than intended. Another famous number is I Want to Be a Producer, which is a song sung by Leo Bloom, but the setup that precedes that is his accountant office and how the accountants are treated. There are like a lot of jokes that are delivered about just generally accounting as an industry, and these that landed particularly well. I don't know how many people were accountants in the audience, but they were really hilarious, and the contrast between the life that he was leading with the execution of this number on stage was fantastic, with some chorus girls and tap dancing and beautiful costumes. So all of the things really matched up the desires that Leo had for himself when it comes to what a producer life looks like. And another famous number that was shining in its full glory was Keep It Gay, a song that is talking about the musical needing to be joyful and happy, but obviously playing on the word gay and making it as camp as possible. The third thing that makes the show a standout is the costumes. While the producers don't necessarily have excessive costumes because they're just wearing a couple of suits, there are some really fun costumes that Roger Debris is wearing, and also when Springtime for Hitler is performed during the show, there are also some hilarious costumes and wigs that are at play. So I think that this is definitely contributing to making this show as over the top as possible. And on a similar note, choreography is really good throughout the show. Even when you have the solo numbers, for example, when Andy Nyman is opening the show, there are really interesting blocking solutions that make a scene where there aren't a lot of cast members on stage still super engaging. And this is a particular nod to performances because the lyrics in the show are very mouthy. There is a lot of fast delivery of the lines that in order to be able to do it justice, you really need to be on top of it, not just in terms of choreography and movements, but like really enunciate and articulate and help those jokes land as well as possible. As alluded a few times, this is a show that has a particular sense of humor which you might resonate with or might not resonate with. And in my case, there are some things that I have resonated more with than the others. As mentioned, I wasn't familiar with the producers and what this show is about, so it took me by surprise that it is so over the top in terms of the humor and delivery. But I think because this production has really amplified those elements, it kind of lends well with people who are into this type of humor. And while the majority of cases this humor is so clearly outdated and probably funny because of that, there is something about seeing swastikas on stage or these like red curtains with swastikas on them that just makes me uneasy. And I think this is part of the show where, yes, ridiculing Hitler is funny, but at the same time, it just still provokes the imagery and the associations that are related to him. So I feel a little bit uncomfortable to laugh about it, and I think this is maybe a personal preference because I'm not necessarily a person who likes to joke about these things, or generally that is my kind of humor. But kind of like, if I set that aside, this is a musical that if you know what you're getting yourself into, then you're gonna have the experience that is much richer, because if you know that you're going to see the producers because you like the movie or you have seen the previous adaptations of this show, I think you just know what you're getting yourself into, and you're not going to be surprised by all of this ridiculousness that is part of this show and what makes the show what it is. Whereas in my case, because I went a little bit blind into it, I was just kind of a little bit like, oh my god, are we still doing these kind of musicals? Are we still having spaces for these musicals to be performed? But there is a lot of beauty to reviving a classic like this, and I think that this is a production that does it justice. For people who like the original material, the movie and the previous shows, they're gonna love it because this is their jam. Maybe it's one of their favorite shows, maybe it's one of the movies that they watch when they're sad and they just want to have a quick laugh. I think that for those people, this is gonna be such an amazing treat of a show. When it comes to me and my verdict of the show, I have enjoyed it from the perspective of the performances and choreographies and costumes, but I just am not really resonating with this as a original source material. I appreciate it for the classic it is, but I don't think that I would go out on my way to watch a show like this again. But this is just my personal opinion. This is definitely a production that has a lot of great details and nuances covered. It is probably one of the best productions of this show yet, so if you're a fan of this show, then I think you should definitely go and check it out. There's still time to go and see this musical because it closes on the 1st of March 2026, so if you're interested in it, definitely get the tickets. It is on at the Garrick Theatre. But if you're wondering what are the theatres in London that have made my top 10 list, then check out this video where I'm talking about my favorites.